Good evening and welcome to Spotlight on MX24 television. As of today, the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, has presented the 2022 budget, mid-year budget review to Parliament. This is, of course, in accordance with the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921. There are a few things the Minister touched on. He spoke about government's decision to go back to the IMF, as well as the introduction of road tolls on newly completed roads. He's also mentioned some of the difficulties confronting the economy in recent times and steps that government intends to take to restructure the economy. Of course, to help me with this discussion, I have Dr. Williams Kwesi-Pipra. He's a professor at Andrews University. Dr. Daniel Enim, also an economist, not new to Spotlight. Mr. Samson Awingobet is Executive Secretary of the Importers and Exporters Association, and Samuel Amwa, National Communications Team Member of the GPRTU. We'll go for a quick break. When Spotlight returns, we go straight to that conversation. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Spotlight. My name is Nwang Falong. This evening we're discussing the mid-year budget review that was read in Parliament by Minister of Finance, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta. Among the highlights of this budget, there was a mention of revising macroeconomic targets from previous values to present updated values. Poignant among those is economic growth, revision of economic growth from 5.8%, a projected 5.8% in the budget, to 3.7%. Also, end-year inflation, which was projected at 8%, was performing, it seems, in these figures, projected to perform at 28.5%. That's over some about 20 digits higher than previous. Also, fiscal deficit revised from 7.4% to 6.6%. There are some other figures there, but let me just take some of these highlights directly from the minister himself. He spoke on the cedi depreciation. Let's just quickly take a listen to that and come back to the discussion.
And increased growth. These targets, Mr. Speaker, were underpinned by an aggressive program to mobilize 100.5 billion Ghana cedis in revenues and grants, of estimated total expenditure of 137.5 billion Ghana cedis. We aim to achieve an overall budget deficit of 7.4% for the year 2022. This was against the backdrop that economic growth had recovered from 0.5% in 2020 to 5.4% in 2021, and the fiscal deficit had declined from 14.7% in 2020 to 11.4% in 2021. While the prospects for 2022 are encouraging, our plans, like many other countries in the world, went awry. Mr. Speaker, the impasse in Parliament and subsequent development after the presentation of the budget in November 2021, both global and domestic front, have created enormous challenges for our economy. The deferment of the passage of our proposed revenue measures undermines the credibility of our budget, leading to heightened investor concerns, credit rating downgrades, and closed access to the international capital markets. These happenings, Mr. Speaker, have led to severe pressures on the cedi, which caused the currency to depreciate significantly. Additionally, in February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, a situation Mr. Speaker, additionally, in February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, a situation that worsened the already weakened global supply chains, exacerbated by high financing conditions, the surge in food, fertilizer, financing, and building materials and fuel prices that manifested in soaring inflation domestically. These have had a debilitating toll on the costs and standard of living of our people. Mr. Speaker, food prices are rising, fuel and transport fares are up, the cost of borrowing for businesses and households has increased, the cedi has depreciated, and the economic outlook has darkened significantly. Mr. Speaker, this state of affairs is quite a painful one for me to report to you. It is hard to see our people lament about the prices of basic commodities. These are difficult times for government and indeed for the finance minister. It is agonizing to hear our food producers complain about the cost of falling foodstuff from farm gates.
It is hard to see our people lament over the prices of goods and services, increasing prices. That's the Minister of Finance, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, earlier in Parliament earlier today. Let me just go to our phone lines where we have Dr. Daniel Enim. He's an economist. He has just joined us. I want to find out from him. Dr. Enim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Did you listen to the review earlier today?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so we hear the Minister of Finance talk about the economic situation. But beyond that, what stood out for you in the budget reading?
Yes, thank you very much. Principally, to me, it's just like repetition of the main budget. What one would have expected, respectfully, is that he should be able to also touch on the interventions that was introduced, in the main budget, and one of such is the e-levy. Okay, the e-levy was very critical, and one would have expected the minister in his review statement
and the performance
to tell us exactly how much government has received in terms of the revenue, the actual, and the expected, and then the gap. Why the gap? And it should be able to take advantage to appeal to the conscience of Ghanaians that, look, we expected to rope in this. This is what we had, and we still need more to be able to meet our recurrent expenditure, even as well as meeting the capital expenditure. And then there's a need for all of us to collectively embrace the e-levy, more importantly, take into consideration our current economic conditions. To me, that was a little bit silent. I stand to be educated, to be corrected. But for what I have gathered, the minister has not touched on that. I would have expected him to make a strong case in respect of the e-levy, proceed from the e-levy. That is one aspect of the whole issue. Then the second issue, I would have expected the Honorable Minister to tell us that now that we are going to the IMF, these are the expected adjustments that will reflect in terms of the budget statement that was presented, the main one. These are the possibilities, and this is what government is trying to negotiate so as not to put further expected hardship on the citizens. That story has been a little bit silent, probably because they are still in the negotiation. But I'm of the view that communication is very important, not necessarily giving us what they actually discussed, but being able to throw more light on the preliminary IMF negotiation that recently happened, just to give the citizens, to clear away our expectation in terms of the conditionality that almost all of us are anticipating. So that is another aspect of that. Another critical thing to me, which now on the macroeconomic environment, which can distort any economy, has to do with the inflation. Inflationary pressure, what it does is that indirectly takes money from your pocket. In other words, because your income level is still the same and the prices of goods keep on increasing, it minimizes your living standard. In other words, cost of living will increase. So one would have expected the minister, I think he admitted that we are in a difficult time, but one would have expected a policy direction in this particular respect. So he touched on the BOD ability to curtail inflationary pressure. But to me, the kind of inflation that we are experiencing now is outside the realm of monetary policy. In other words, BOD does not have absolute control in curtailing the inflationary pressure we are experiencing currently because it is coming from the supply side, that is cost-driven. So there should be a policy direction.
So,
hello?
Yes, Dr. Nim, I'm listening.
Right. So there should be a policy direction from the Ministry of Finance in terms of addressing the recent inflationary pressure that we have. So if you look at the revised projection, government expected at the end of the fiscal year it should be plus or minus 2 of 8%, and now we put it at 8.5% or so. You've seen the gap. So it is an admission that it will be very difficult for government to minimize inflation. So once he touched on that, one would have expected him to come with policy intervention just to assure the citizens of the country that government is indeed working very hard to minimize the inflation pressure. Another aspect of the macroeconomic indicator, which is to me is very key, has to do with the exchange rate. Of course, once the IMF bailout come on board, we should be able to address our balance of payment situation and, of course, beef up our reserves, and then probably that may minimize the performance of the CD. But as it stands now, I think he admitted that it's a challenge. But, of course, one would have, because we are doing a review, one would have expected a very pragmatic kind of strategy that the government intend addressing this situation aside from the IMF expected inflow that will be coming on board. So to me, these are some of the areas I was actually, all the statement I was keenly monitoring, because the rest are just repetition of statements. I think there's another aspect of it that is not an economic issue though, but I was not so much enthused with the conduct of the majority MPs in Parliament. One would have expected them to exercise a certain decorum to appeal to the conscience of Ghanaians that they actually understood what we're going through, and they share in our pain, and they are working very hard to ensure that the government that is turn the fortunes of this country in a manner that almost all of us will, in quotes, will be economically free, so to speak. But they were making, hailing the finance minister on issues that are very critical to the ordinary Ghanaian. So I would have expected them to be very calm, just to show from their demeanor or conduct to show that indeed we're going through difficult times. The government is aware, and government is rolling out programs to be able to address that. Unfortunately, their demeanor today seems to suggest that they are not too much, so to speak, bothered about the kind of hardship that Ghanaians are going through. Anyway, just by then. So, to me, these are some of the takeaways from the presentation.
Right, Dr. Nima, I'll come back to you in a moment, but if I heard you correctly, you're thinking there should have been some kind of empathy from the majority MPs. You're also saying there were not enough policy solutions that were heard in this particular budget review, especially with regards to stabilizing the city. I mean, I remember that the Minister for Finance mentioned that the Ministry of Finance is going to work with the Bank of Ghana to provide some measures to stabilize the city, but no details were given over there. You're also saying the policy solutions you're looking at, this is outside the realm of monetary policy. But let me go to the phone where we have Professor William Kwesi Pepra. He's also joining us from the USA on Zoom. Prof, do you echo the sentiments of Dr. Daniel Enim, even before your own observations of this budget review?
Good evening, and thank you very much for calling me. Yes, so as it was said, I watched it and I realized that you were still singing the praise of the finance minister. But the finance minister himself admitted that he is sorry in a polite way for putting Ghanaians through harsh times. He admitted that inflationary pressures, exchange rate or currency devaluation has worsened the situations for Ghanaians. So the parliamentarians on the majority side should have acted with a certain form of decorum in addressing the issue. The other bit of the issue is that the main purpose for the media review, for me, I see that probably it was mixed by the finance minister. Not too much of the micro indicators were given. Also, we couldn't hear of the actual analysis of the total revenue and expenditure and finance performance for a period of the first 6 months of the year. So if you really look at it, we don't know the total revenue that will have been generated by government from January to
so far. Okay.
We were not told what is the total expenditure from January to June, whether there was a deficit, and if there was a deficit, how was it financed? And if they were financed by debt, what is the breakdown of the debt component? How much of that debt is made up of external or held by foreigners? How much of that is held by internal, which is Ghanaians, or in CD denominated terms? So in actual sense, this was what I was expecting to see, but or hear, but I didn't hear that. All that I heard was that the minister went ahead to revise his outlook for 2022. So it looked like for us to be able to trust the outlook given, the revised outlook given by the finance minister, we need to understand what has happened within January to December to June. Then all of us can now say that, oh, okay, the projections up to December can be achieved or they cannot be achieved. So this is something that was critically missed. So I don't know how investors or financial experts, accountants will be able to really understand. We needed to know whether even within the first 6 months, Ghana revenue had been able to achieve their revenue target. This was not told. Most major element of the component of macroeconomics, we were not given much details on, especially when it comes to the debt, the financing part. All that we were told was the revised GDP to 7.3. Also, we were told that 1D, 1F is now working, and about 125 factories are in operations now. We were also given some indication about NAPCO ending in August. So what it means is that the amount of about 198 million is going to be freed from the budget from August. So government should have mentioned to us that from August, there will be about 100,000 Ghanaians who are on the NAPCO program who are going to become unemployed. This we were not told. The reality is that government is expecting that these young men and women will now be engaging themselves in the Youth Start program. And if you listen to the minister, the Youth Start program is only focusing on, he gave an indication about 25,000 Ghanaians. So for me, I foresee a major challenge coming in after August, where we have additional 100,000 Ghanaians being unemployed. Then, in terms of infrastructure, I noticed that the minister mentioned, when it comes to railway developments, mentioned that the railway line from Tema to Mpakadan, that is the northern part, will be constructed. But what was omitted was the Buankra railway project. You see, the Buankra railway project, before the elections, government went and did a shortcutting. So is government telling us that they are not going to do that project? Because that railway line is also connecting from the midpoint of Ghana to the northern part of Ghana. So we really need to understand whether that project will really happen in 2022. If government is moving into 2023, they may have to tell us so that
they have to be very
adjust
clear.
ourselves.
Prof, give me a moment there. I'm going to come back to the entire discussion in a moment, but we need to go for a quick commercial break from our esteemed sponsors. We'll be right back to Spotlight. Stay with us.
Pay your taxes and let's free God.
I'm a nurse.
I am a farmer.
I'm a spare parts dealer.
From other nations.
Charlie, things hard, I know, but no matter how difficult things get, we always try to do the important things.
By paying the e-levy,
I'm supporting government to help provide adequate health care for everyone.
Let us do this together. We deserve a prosperous Ghana.
With less than 20% of eligible taxpayers registered for income tax, the government has done significant work. Imagine what we can achieve if more pay the e-levy. Kindly note, however, that you are not charged e-levy when you make transfers from your wallet to an account or another wallet bearing your name. Be the hero Ghana needs. Let your taxes work for you. Pay your e-levy and let's build Ghana together for this generation and the next. This ad is powered by the government of Ghana, Ghana Revenue Authority, and the people of Ghana.
Welcome back to Spotlight. We're discussing the mid-year budget review. So far, we're speaking to Dr. Daniel Enim, also Professor Williams Kwesi Pipra. They have been discussing some critical components that they believe are missing from the budget review. We also have Samuel Amoa, who's National Communications Team Member of the GPRTU on the line. I'm going to go to him in a moment to find out if he had any critical areas missing for him also, or he has other observations. But before that, we also have a small snippet of the Minister of Finance speaking on Ghana's visit to the IMF. Let's just take that quickly.
Speaker, let me take this opportunity to discuss the issue of our return to the IMF. Yes, I know this government assured the nation of a Ghana beyond aid, and our plans and programs for economic transformation have been designed to achieve just that. And indeed, I did say that Ghana would not embark on an IMF program. We did not just say it, we also took measures towards the attainment of that objective, including the passage of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and instituting a number of irreversibility measures, and also launching the Ghana Cares Obatampa program for economic revitalization and transformation. Unfortunately, unprecedented global developments, Mr. Speaker, over the past 2 years, especially in these last 6 months, have really and truly disrupted our efforts. Governments across the world have had to change course to tackle the current crisis. Governments that less than a year ago were busily talking about energy transition and green and cleaner fuels have gone back to firing their coal plants. Governments that are known for low taxes are now raising taxes to tackle growing deficits. An International Monetary Fund staff team visited Accra from July 6 to 13, 2022 to assess the current economic situation and discuss the broad lines of our government's enhanced domestic program that could be supported by the fund. At the conclusion of the mission, the Speaker, the statement by the team lead correctly captured where we are and why we are where we are. He said, Ghana is facing, and I quote, Ghana is facing a challenging economic and social situation amid an increasingly difficult global environment. The fiscal and debt situation has severely worsened following the COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, investors' concerns have triggered credit rating downgrades, capital outflows, loss of external market access, and rising domestic borrowing costs. In addition, the global economic shock caused by the war in Ukraine is hitting Ghana at a time when the country is still recovering at a time when the country is still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic shock and with limited room for maneuver. These adverse developments have contributed to slow economic growth, accumulation of unpaid bills, a large exchange rate depreciation, and a surge in inflation. Unquote, Mr. Speaker, from the fund.
Okay, that was just another snippet of the finance minister earlier in Parliament. Let me go to Samuel Amwa, who's a National Communications Team member of the GPRTU. The minority in Parliament have already described this budget review as very empty, in their own words. We've heard from our economists who think there are critical components missing, updates that should have been received and details that should have been given, especially on revenue, expenditure, etc. Mr. Amwa, what was in this budget for you?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me say good evening to your viewers out there. And then what I would say is that when we talk about our businesses, we do run transport. And one of the major components we use to run our business is the petroleum products. So anytime a budget is being read, all our expectations is that they will do something about the petroleum product, talking about...
Especially now that they're increasing fuel prices.
Our expectation.
Yes, Samuel, I was saying especially now that
come again, please.
I was saying especially now that fuel prices keep increasing, seem very unreliable.
Come again, please?
Samuel, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Amwa?
Yes.
If you don't mind, can you turn on your video?
Yes, that is what I was talking about. Yes, I can hear you now.
Great.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Is my video not on?
No, it's not.
Is it on? Oh, okay. Is my video on now? Right, but can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, proceed, please.
All right. Yes. What I was saying is that the major component we are using now is the petroleum product, and whenever the petroleum product goes high, it affects our business. So this time around, our expectations is that the fuel prices should come down. You know, we were supposed to increase our transport fares based on the agreement we had with the government that anytime the fuel prices will be increased up to the 10% threshold, then we, the operators, also have the opportunity to increase our transport fares. But then now we have exceeded. We have hit about 25 to 30% increment as of now. We had wanted to come up with an increment, but then whenever the transport price is being increased, it affects everything in the country. So we decided to hold on, waiting that maybe this budget, the minister would talk about the fuel prices by maybe talking about how they'll bring it down, or maybe taking up some taxes that we think is on the petroleum product that is taking it too high. But unfortunately, we didn't hear something of that sort, and then we were a bit disappointed because we think that there is something they could do about the petroleum product, because anytime it goes high, our businesses goes down. So I think we were not pleased about where the fuel prices is, and for them not doing anything about the petroleum product.
Right. Let me stay on roads. One of the important things that were mentioned about roads, he mentioned that all new roads under the PPP project will be tolled. This is something that people are not receiving exactly excitedly. What do you think about tolls on the new roads?
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, we take those tolls to build our roads, to maintain the roads. But let's go back and check something. For the past time that they have been taking those tolls, let's find out whether those monies are being used for the right purposes. The answer I will give to you is no. We were paying these taxes or these tolls for a long time, and checking on the roads that we are using wasn't the best. And now that they say they are bringing it, yes, we as transport operators, we are waiting, or we are looking forward for the government to give a good road to dualize some of our roads that we think they should do. So now, if they say they are bringing the toll, yes, we can oppose, we can kick it out. Even the other time, the leadership of GPIT met our sector minister, that is the transport minister, then we made him understood that, yes, if they say they are bringing the tolls, we think they are going to privatize it again. They are going to give it to private companies to run it. GPRT is capable, to just take those contracts that we think, if we have been given the opportunity to handle that, we can take those monies and whatever money that we think has to go to the government, so that they can use those monies to maintain our roads or to build new roads for us. Because we think those monies that they were taking, they were not using it for the right purpose. Because if we bring our minds back, some time ago, Honorable Amakwaka came out clear that those monies that they have been taking, there are leakages, on that money, meaning there is no proper accountability. But if now they are bringing it, then they should restructure the whole thing so that those monies should be taken. Then the good roads that we, the transporters, are looking for them to build for us, we can also enjoy the good roads.
Mr. Amo, in the absence of this accountability that you referred to, don't you think this is something that's going to help at least recoup the cost of constructing that road?
Come again, please.
Don't you think this will at least help? Won't this at least help government recoup the cost of constructing the road? Because the money spent in constructing the road has to be gotten back.
Yes. I think that is what I'm saying. That is what I'm just referring to. We are not kicking against it. We, the transporters, we are not saying they shouldn't bring it. Yes, it was there. Although what we were saying is we were paying those tolls, but the money that they were taking was not used for the right purposes. So now, if they say they are bringing it back, then they should use those monies for the right purposes to build our roads for us. Because I think coming back with these tolls, I think we'll help the government to generate some funds to build the roads. But the question is, are they going to use those money for the right purposes? That is what our problem is. That is why we, the GPIT, we say, yes, we can also apply. Then those contractors to be given to us. Then we also manage it, making sure that all the monies that we take, we use it for the good roads that we are looking for.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Amo, for your take on that. Let me come back here to Dr. Daniel Enim. Dr. Enim, still speaking on this specifically, one of the things Professor Kwesi Pepra mentioned was the detail for, expenditure, the performance of previous policies within the budget. When we look at revenue generation, which has been revised, of course, what do you make of our revenue targets and the revision?
Yes, thank you very much. Just a quick one, if you listen to the statement presented by Honorable Minister, I mean, cleverly, he escaped to walk us through our performance in terms of revenue expenditure up to date. And then probably there must be a reason. And to me, where I see it is because the performance is not anything to write home about. And probably that's the reason which the Honorable Minister closed an eye on that particular aspect, which to my mind is very critical.
But Dr. Nim, even if the performance has been terrible, in the spirit of accountability, the figures should be transparent enough for us to all know. Shall we just assume that we're not performing creditably, and so he left that out?
At least so. You know, the Honorable Minister, if you follow, since he assumed office as the Finance Minister, if you follow his financial statement presented on behalf of the President, one will notice that he always highlights and make a strong case in critical macroeconomic sectors that they perform very well. More importantly, before the COVID, if you follow, he's very key on our revenue projections, and the GRA has done A, B, C, D, expenditure is this. So for the fact that he decided to remain silent on this particular, it's a clear indication that the performance was not too good. But just like you indicated rightly, in the spirit of accountability, he's expected to walk us through whether the performance is good or not. He should have put up the details there for all of us to peruse and understand the reality on the ground. And that will also inform the demand that will be placed by labor union and then citizens as a whole. Because once you put up the reality, and then all of us know that, look, in terms of revenue generation, you are not doing so well. In terms of the demand, even when citizens will even demand for what is due them, in terms of the percentage, they will be a little bit moderate. So I'm not too enthused that the Honorable Minister failed to put out that particular information. Even though from my initial presentation, I critiqued his presentation from the macroeconomic perspective. However, there are certain few, how do you call it, things that he outlined in the statement that I need to touch on. To me, it's quite progressive. And that has to do with the road financing. The approach that he described, provided they work on that path, to me, I think that's a very progressive way of ensuring that we construct our roads and then getting the returns on that particular investment. And I'm of the view that similar things should be done in other critical aspects in the country for us to be able to construct more roads and then getting the returns on that.
So you think all other road tolls should return?
Hello?
You think all other road tolls should return?
Oh, look, and that is what will happen in the next fiscal budget. That's 2023. I can tell you on authority that this is just to prepare the minds of Ghanaians that, look, we want to return the road. So I do not understand why he has not been too bold to announce that, look, we've missed it big time, or we've erred in terms of our analysis. And I have indicated that nobody was complaining about payment of road toll. All that we're all saying is that fix our roads and make sure that we have very good roads. Okay, nobody in this country has ever complained about the payment of road tolls. Anytime we are complaining, they link it to the status of the road. So for them to scrap the road tolls by the virtue of increasing e-levy backfired. It should be bold and say, look, we are introducing road tolls, but this is a very innovative way of telling all of us that in the 2023 fiscal budget, payment or the road tolls entirely throughout will be retained. So to me, this is how I see it. But the new financial engineering in respect of the PPP arrangement to be able to construct roads and get returns, I think it to be very progressive, and they need to replicate it. Another thing that he said that I think is very good has to be about the health sector, the Agenda 11 agenda, provided, and I'm using my word advisedly, provided indeed all that he put out in the statement is what is on the ground. Then to me, I've seen some kind of learning from the pandemic and the desire of government to ensure that we have more health facilities. It's something that ought to be recommended. But just like I indicated, I don't want it to be a mere political statement. Because there's something I have tracked over the period since I started following budget statements. They always mention Adenta Dodowa Road every year if you go through the budget, but nothing has been done. I don't want that to happen to Agenda 111. I want implementation of that particular policy, because if there's anything we have not learned from the pandemic, it has to do about the weakness in our health delivery system, and there's the need for us to invest hugely into that particular sector to ensure that should any future pandemic occurs, we will be in a better position to address it very well. So to me, these are some of the initiatives. Then the issue of the what again was? Yes, the issue of GRA going digital to be able to mobilize more resources, I think it's also a very progressive thing. And he also mentioned the property tax. We've not been doing so well, principally because most of the properties are owned by the big men. And so one wouldn't, naturally, they do not have that moral audacity to ensure that the policies are implemented to the benefit of the citizens. So you keep on seeing the Honorable Minister and almost every analyst saying that we ought to focus on the property tax. But of course, just as indicated, all the big-time properties in this country are owned by the politicians, are owned by big men in society. So to me, I see it as a deliberate attempt not to ensure that we facilitate the property tax in this part of in our domestic economy. So that is it. So to me, these are some of the progressive things that I must admit that the minister has really touched on. But the critical thing, which is very important, I don't know where, probably if it is from the advice from the IMF or it is part of the negotiation that is not supposed to walk us through the actual performance in terms of revenue and expenditure to date, then he must be forgiven if that is the understanding. But if it's deliberate that is not to make Ghanaians know the true state of the economy, then that would have been very unfortunate.
Thank you, Dr. Nim. Dr. Kwesi-Pratt, let me just ask you this. In the reading, we hear a lot of calls by the minority for the minister to resign. This hasn't only been heard from the minority. There have been a few calls in the last month or so for him to resign. Do you think it's time for him to step back and let someone else take over the management of the Ministry of Finance?
Okay, thank you very much. So for me, I think that what the minority is saying is, if I'm just basing it on academics, and because the errors or misrepresentations and non-compliance to our laws are some of the reasons why they are agitating for this. So, in the first place, for what happened today, in the Financial Management Act 2016-921, Section 28C, that is where the finance minister was supposed to give us the detailed expenditure, what I just mentioned, and in revenues. He failed to do that. I noticed that in the finance minister's presentation, in item number 36, instead of the finance minister giving us that information, he rather used micro performance indicators, that is percentages, based on Ghana statistical data. So I don't know why the minister did that, but once you do that, it becomes that you are hiding some things. Also, we are aware of whether it was a mistake for saying that our gross international reserve has reduced from 9 billion to 3 billion, 900 billion to 3 billion, 9 billion to 3 billion, which probably are some of the issues that need to be addressed. And also, the minister missing out on his own projections for the first half of the year are some of the things that I think that he needs to assess himself. If he thinks that he has some weakness, which he cannot stand the heat coming from the minority, he may have to, do justice to that. If the president also deems it fit to let him stay on, the prerogative is with the president. He will decide. Let me draw your attention, the budget, to one thing that the minister mentioned, which he makes in giving us information. He said that the revenue, initially when he projected the 100.5 billion revenue, a lot of us were against, were saying that he was too ambitious and it wasn't realistic for him to achieve it. Now he revised it to 96.5 billion. And he said that he's going to achieve that based on the windfall coming from the upstream petroleum sector. Simply put, if you look at, because the crude oil prices in the world has moved to above $100, in the budget for 2022, he projected around $50 to $60. So there is a windfall for government for about $40. And so that is what he's basing his argument on, that he will be able to achieve the 96.4 billion Ghana cedis in terms of revenue for 2022.
Is that not possible?
We were expecting him to give us how many barrels are we expecting to receive from 10? Are we expecting to receive from Sankofa? Are we expecting to receive from Jubilee? Based on that, to make that projection, because the trend from these production points in terms of barrels within the first and second quarter has been reducing. If you look at the Bank of Ghana data, if you also go to the Ghana Petroleum website, they provide the information there. So it's a little bit difficult for especially me, for me to understand why he's making that assertions without giving us the real facts and figures, so that we can be able to do the analysis for ourselves.
Right.
History. So my last point is that he should be very careful so that we don't go in the line of Nigeria, where the economic hopes is only based on oil, and any time that the oil price misbehave, it really affects the economy. So Nigeria, as we know, in terms of revenues, they are doing very well, but when it comes to expenditure, we are above the expenditures, we are above what they project. So we should be very careful, because once you put your hopes in the oil industry, this is an industry that is very rapidly changing in terms of prices. Anything can happen next month. So does it mean that if something should happen, the price should drop? What are we going to do? So we have to be very careful in that kind of projection.
Right. Now, one of the things we hear the minister say is that we can definitely turn around the economy, especially if we could turn the economy around from the economic situation in 2017. He can do it again. Do you think there's a bright future where Ghana's economy is concerned, looking at all the gloomy figures we've been seeing in the last few months and today, the downward revisions for key figures? Is there a possibility of a turnaround anytime soon?
I mean, this is possible. It can be done. I mean, it's always based on financial discipline. If the minister is going to be disciplined with his expenditure, if government appointees are going to be disciplined with their expenditure patterns, is the presidency going to be disciplined with their expenditure patterns, and also make sure that they are not swayed by political promises, then this is possible. Right. And the coming in of IMF will also help us to be a little bit disciplined.
Right.
So I'm sure within the next 24 or to 36 months, we'll be able to turn things around. But it all depends on how disciplined we will be as a country.
The next 24 to 36 months. Okay, we'll be critically looking at that. But let me go to Mr. Amwa there, if he's still on the line. Mr. Amwa, are you still there? Hello, Mr. Amwa, can you hear me? Okay, let me just move to Dr. Enim for his last words there. Any hopes for the turnaround of the economy?
Yes, there is hope, but just like Prof said, it's about we doing the right thing. We shouldn't expect any quick transformation of the economy. If there should be any change in terms of radical change in the economy, then we should be expecting maybe probably, per my estimation, third quarter of next year, 2023. And that is dependent on our conduct in terms of revenue mobilization, fiscal discipline, and approach to strategy. And, you know, it is on this call I will employ the president to reconsider his appointees in terms of reshuffling and kind of stuff. Just like you asked the question, people are asking for the finance minister to go. To me, I think that responsibility lies on the president. He's supposed to, you know, bring new people, move people from one ministry to another. Everybody in his or her strength. If you look at the strength of our finance minister currently, I mean, he's the person that developed his capacity from the capital market, and that's the reason which you could see him borrowing so much from the capital market. I'll end by saying that he respectfully, His Excellency Nanado, our president, should learn some few things from President Kufuor. I recall, I was a small boy, but I recall vividly that when President Kufuor took over, at the time where our economy was hectic, and immediately he appointed Honorable Osafo Manfo. Right after stabilizing the economy, he changed the approach because he was expecting growth. And then the late Barredo was appointed as the finance minister to drive the growth agenda. And so these are some of the learnings that are available for His Excellency to, you know, so you don't just keep one man there when we are not being, it doesn't mean that he's not performing, but everybody is trained, and then the challenges and his ability to navigate. So we expect him to reshuffle the ministers, or if possible, bring some new hands to be able to activate the kind of strategy and expectation we are all expecting. So this is my humble call using your platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel Enimeko, for reshuffle there, putting fresh hands and fresh minds in different places and seeing if it will ignite some form of change or new energy. There's also the call for fiscal discipline, which is nothing new, and Ghana has on its own instituted fiscal disciplinary measures and policies that have not been adhered to in the last few years for various reasons. But will we reset to a point that will inspire growth in the Ghanaian economy and benefit all of Ghanaians at the end of the day? This is something that we all have to be watching out for in the next few months and years. My name is Noang Falong. Thank you for staying with us on Spotlight on MX24 television. We're grateful for your time. Good evening. See you same time Wednesday.